What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I got a couple requests to do this video for 2v2s since people seem to enjoy the 3v3 version. If you haven't seen that one, please take a look. I'd appreciate it. Also, somebody asked me last time why the blue team was defending the orange net. So just for that, go fuck yourself. We're going to do the same shit on this video. But anyway, this is strictly a coaching session on strategical things to think about in a 2v2 game. So I hope you enjoy. All right, so let's talk first about the main differences between twos and threes. Because while it's still the exact same game, just with two less cars on the field, the tactics that you use in threes on offense and defense do change pretty drastically without that extra person out there. So the main differences I would say are as follows. The first one is that there's more space. Obviously, this creates better opportunities for 1v1s and just more time in general for anything that you're trying to do. The second thing is that there's greater risk in passing plays. So just keep this in mind because the passer and the shooter end up being the only two people who are on the field. So if they both commit to the play and they miss, the net is usually wide open coming back the other way. And there's going to be more on that in a second. The third thing is that the game is much more about fake challenges than it is about real challenges. Because when you play, let's say you play a game in threes as the one man, you can challenge the ball like a psychopath because you still have two players behind you. In twos, if you try to challenge the ball aggressively and you miss, you just created a 2v1, which is exactly what this entire video is going to be about, which is basically how to stop fucking up and leaving your teammate in shitty situations, or vice versa by taking advantage of when your opponent plays like a ball chaser like this guy. So now that we've got the main differences out of the way, let's get into some defensive concepts. All right, so in looking at this, let's think about what blue should be doing to position themselves perfectly to defend this potential breakout from orange. When you think about rotations in threes, you think about the back post. And that's something that we talk about all the time, and you see it in that other video. When we think about twos, we also think about the back post, but we can't just ignore the play that's happening, that's right in front of us. So to play this perfectly from this position first is what we're going to start with. We need to shadow defend. The reason it's important to shadow defend here instead of just rotating to back post is because you're giving up all this space. And we talked about in twos, again, space is basically a big part of the game. To give up that space creates a huge advantage for orange. We can't just give this player the opportunity to do what they want to do. So your goal here, if you're this guy, is to stay close enough to this player where if they lose the ball too far forward, you're in a position to scoop it up. And you don't want to get too close where if they flick the ball over your head, you've allowed them to, create some kind of an offensive threat. So you want to be right in the sweet spot in between those two things. And ideally, your goal is to bring this player into your corner. You want to invite them right up the wall into your corner, make him tee, tell him stories, do what you got to do to make this corner look like it's the ideal spot for him. Okay? And you always want to be in a position where you have momentum heading towards your own net, which as you can see, our car is facing in this direction. And you also want to be in a position where you're defending your net from one side to the other. So what I mean by that is from this side to this side, if obviously we are on this side of the goal. So you never want to be in a position where if you're shadow defending and, this guy is driving up this way, and he comes here, and you get too far forward. Now he brings the ball back behind you. Now you're trying to defend it this way. That's a big no-no. We want to make sure this player doesn't cross us up, and that shouldn't happen if we're in the right spot. Okay, so now what do we do if we're this guy, right? And let's maybe just reset this so we've got sort of our positioning. And really, when I have this diagram, I have this car facing here because this guy is in the corner. But what you'll find is as this ball gets closer up the field, you really want to be facing this way. As we said, we want our momentum facing our net. so that we're in a position if he flicks the ball or if he does something with it, we're able to kind of scoop it up and catch it. And if the ball gets a little bit too far in front of him where he's losing it, we can just immediately turn and make a play. So your car should be facing towards your net. That's a key part of this. However, that's unlikely when we start with the ball in the corner. So again, I'm just going to leave it like that for now. What do we do if we're this guy? If we're this guy and you see this ball is coming, down this wall or some kind of a breakout is happening on the opposite side, you want to either grab this boost or grab this boost. And if I could illustrate the perfect position for you to be in, it is inside your own net on this back post. There is not a better spot to defend this play. Again, let's say this ball gets to here, and our player here has done a nice job of inviting this player into the corner. And then, you've got this guy maybe coming up the mid. This is fantastic. This positioning right here and this positioning right here. The entire goal that what you're trying to create by doing this is 2 layers of defense. So you have this layer of defense coming this way, and then you have this layer of defense coming this way. So what's going to end up happening as this play develops is assuming this guy has done a good job of eliminating the space for this player, this ball is going to come up the corner this way. You're going to be in a position to just follow it right along, and a lot of times you can grab this boost and you can grab this boost, which means that this player can only rely on this boost by the time he gets here, or maybe, a couple pads along the way, but you can just scoop everything up on your way back. This player, kind of comes mid, somewhere in this position, right? We're still thinking about that inside post. We'll talk about offense in a second. But what are you going to do? Because what we're trying to create is these 2 layers of defense, where this ball has to go through not only the first guy, but the second guy. And we're both in a spot to be able to defend the ball. When you rotate behind, like you would normally do in threes, you've really only created 1 layer of defense. And you've given this player too much space. So to put these cars back where they're supposed to be, it should really look something like this. And this guy, again, your objective or your mindset or what you're thinking about from this position is this ball is not a threat until it crosses my front post. Once that ball crosses my front post or is about to cross my front post, that's when it's a problem. So you need to be mindful of that mentality, because if the ball is dribbling very slow in this corner, just be there. Just play a 50. It's no big deal. You can easily spin around and make a play. If this ball bounces off this wall and comes out here, you're going to want to try to spin and make this play, because you're going to be the first layer of defense. And if you end up missing this ball, you now have a second layer of defense to be able to cross it and get it out. So really, again, the job defensively is to shadow, invite the player into the corner, and create 2 layers of defense. That's the ideal way to play it. And one final scenario that could happen here, let's say you got it in the corner. Let's say this player tries to high roll it, right? And you know what I'm talking about, where it just kind of rolls high along the wall. So it doesn't bounce, but it's kind of rolling like that. This player, again, you just simply drive with the ball. And you can bring the ball over to this corner, and this is going to be your ball on this corner. So that's how you create this extra layer of defense that's really hard for the offensive team to kind of deal with. And if that does end up happening where the ball is here, this player is taking it across this way, you just reposition to this side. And now it's going to end up where it's this situation over here. This guy probably doesn't have any boost, so he just has to leave. There's nothing he can really do at this point, because you took these boosts on your way back. So if he has any boost, it's going to be relatively low. And now you've got this play, from here. This is now Blues possession and Blues chance to make a play. Okay, so now let's think about this from the offensive side. We'll just keep this play going. So we'll just assume now that we're blue. So we want to focus on what blue is going to do on offense from this position. Couple important things to consider. This is one mindset that I want to make sure you have when you're thinking about this, especially in twos. Every single time the defense tries to challenge the ball. So again, we talked about real challenges versus fake challenges earlier. Every time they challenge the ball with a real challenge is an opportunity for you to outplay them. Okay? And if you outplay them when they challenge, you have an odd man rush, and therefore you have a scoring opportunity. So what am I trying to say? If you're in this position here now, and we'll say genuinely you are this close to the ball, because it does matter. And this player is as close as they are. So they're really coming in and they want to challenge you, right? They want to try to make a play here and they want to be aggressive and they want to go for what they need to go for. Allow this ball to roll and just simply play a 50. Just be patient. Just be patient. If the guy hits it into you and he flips, so he flips and he ends up hitting the back wall, and this becomes a 50 that you've won, that comes out to here, guess who's got a 2v1? And we already know from the last scenario that this player doesn't have a ton of boost. So they're in a really bad position to be able to make this play. Okay? If they don't, let's say the ball is here, and let's say we're here, and let's say this guy just backs off, right? Like he's going to get into a position where he can shadow defend. You have space, right? So be patient. You don't have to just boom this thing down the field. You are here. You're in a good spot. You have possession. Let's see what he does first. If he wants to challenge like a psycho, great. If he ends up winning and gets through, you have a second layer of defense. That's the whole purpose of what we're trying to do. So you're here. You try to play a 50. You try to block it. If it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. Don't worry about it. That's why you have another defender there. The other important thing about twos is, specifically about twos on offense, is that as a team, twos is about jointly agreeing on what is and what is not a scoring opportunity. And not every situation is a scoring opportunity. So playing the best with the hand you have is more valuable than overcommitting to try to make ice cream out of shit. Right? There's no reason for me, if I'm in this position, to try to, muscle my way up the field and get it through this guy and just be reckless with the ball. The hand that I have here is that this guy's in a good spot. I respect that he's in a good spot, and I respect that he could be a good player. So I'm just going to be patient. Let the ball come forward a little bit. See if you can outplay him. See if you can get him to move maybe off his spot a little bit. And we talked about his goal as a shadow defender is to bring you into the corner. So be mindful of that as his goal and try to prevent that from being your goal, right? You want to try to maybe push the ball more towards the mid. Maybe if he challenges a little bit too aggressively early, you can bank it off the wall and get it behind him, right? But ultimately, if he's going to want to shadow and he's going to be in a position where he's doing what he needs to do, you want to just consider use of like this part of the field as opposed to use of this part of the field. Because this part is where the player wants you to be. You want to be focused a little bit more on the inside of the field. And again, there's a lot of things that you can do from this position depending on your rank and your skill set. I think one thing that I'll definitely put the link at the bottom was Flakes. I think Flakes made power slide cutting famous, right? So when you think about letting the ball go here, maybe power slide cut to get it, try to get it behind him. Try to get this person to move a little bit to where you can maybe get around them with some speed, and maybe get them out of position where they're facing you from here. Which obviously this is a little bit more threatening because now if this player's here and this player's here, there's some things that can be done from this position. But ultimately, just remember that if this player is shadow defending you from here, and the ball is here, and we'll talk about this guy in a second, you don't really want to just come down the wall. That's not going to be great. What you want to do is just continue to apply pressure on this player, not allow the ball to get too far in front of you, because if at any point they turn, you want to be able to play a 50. And you want to have your net in mind whenever you play a 50. So always keep that as a philosophical thing. But if they ever turn, just play a 50. It's not a big deal. Play a 50. If the ball gets won, great. If it gets lost, it gets lost. Go back and play defense. But if they're never going to turn, then you just kind of want to keep bringing the ball into a threatening area. And again, depending on your mechanics, maybe you can set up to kind of pop it for an air dribble. Maybe you can power slide cut it. Maybe there's a whole plethora of things that you can do other than just bringing the ball into their corner. Now, remember we said anytime they overcommit or anytime they challenge, that's an opportunity for us to outplay them. Let's say they don't do that. So let's say this player continues to shadow defend. This player is getting into position from here. So we're going to do our thing. We're going to try to work our mechanics. We're going to try to work our 1v1 play to see if we can potentially get this guy twisted up or put him out of position or do what we need to do to create a play. But again, as blue, we're not trying to create ice cream out of shit. If we don't have a play, we don't have a play. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. But what do you do if you're this player? That's the key part of all of this whole dynamic at this point. Again, one thing that we have to assess if we're this player is that this player is in good position and this player is in good position. So what this player is trying to do is put this player out of good position somehow or some way, or just generally create some kind of a threat against the opposing team's net. That's his responsibility. We know that we can help assist in that in some ways, but again, keep in mind how big is the threat against your own net. Because if we want to hang out here because there's a lot of space and this is a good passing opportunity, and this player decides that he wants to play a 50 and this ball shoots, somewhere back here, you could potentially turn and play this, but now we've created maybe a situation that's a little bit more a little bit difficult to defend, or maybe dislodges us from position. Of course, we could turn into this shadow roll. We could play it here. We could end up in good defensive position from there. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying be mindful of it. Okay? But let's say we end up back where we're in this spot. One of the things that I think is important to be this player is really you're the last person back on defense, and you and your other teammate have to jointly agree what is a play. This is not really a play. Unless there's, 30 seconds left and you're down by a goal and you're down by 2 goals, let's just see what happens. Let's allow this play to develop and let's support our own net. Because what you don't want to do is be in a position that I just said where everyone overcommits and now it's a 2v1. If this player tries to make, too aggressive of a play and they flip forward and now this player goes and this player goes, you've got to be in a position to stop this. And that's not always easy to do, and you certainly can't do that if you get too close. So what you want to allow is some space for your player to, sort of enter their zone and be able to try to create some kind of a threat. And then, of course, as they get closer, you get closer, right? One general rule that I think in twos can be pretty good, and this again is just any normal kind of flow of the game. So don't take this as every time I need to do this, but just take it as a normal flow rule. It's this rule called stacking. So stacking is just genuinely being, a few car lengths right behind where your teammate is, or just somewhere relatively close to where your teammate is. Because let's just say they do shadow and they do bring this ball down the wall. It's not a bad idea to be on that same wall. So if this ends up, let's say, where they turn and the ball bounces back this way, you're in position to get it, and it's a free ball for you. And then if the ball does end up ricocheting over the top, you're also in a position to be the first player back on that ball. So there's some value in stacking. And you'll see if you watch streaming or, high-level gameplay on 2v2s, a lot of, Twitch streamers play a lot of 2v2s, you might surprise yourself at 2 things if you pay attention to. One, how often do they offensively, as the one man, take the ball up the wall when they're trying to make their offensive rush? You are going to find that this almost never happens. when you try to pay attention to it. The other thing that you're going to pay attention to is how often this player who's back is stacking the player who is in front of them. So if this player is, let's say, let's see if I can get this worked correctly, where they're like here, they're probably going to be like here. You'll find that they're not here, where if you play in plat or low diamond or things of that nature, we're trying to make a passing play, right? This guy's trying to send it here, and I'm going to score, and this is going to be great. Well, when you get to higher ranked opponents, this guy can pretty easily defend that. And this guy, if he's shadowing properly, should be able to see this passing play develop. He should be able to see that this ball is turning inward. And if he has momentum heading this way, he can just take that. And now you see that this player is totally out of position to be able to defend the Holy Grail, which is back here. So just consider your positioning on this as this two-man, that the stack is really not a bad play because there's not a lot going on here. They're in good position. It's okay. What's going to take them out of position? If we play a 50, if we have decent mechanics and we can spin this player, if we can just try to outplay them as we get closer. There's a lot of things that you can do to outplay them other than just slapping the ball down the field. That's the important thing that I want to try to convey with this. And so if you have this good stack or this good relationship here, one additional offensive play that you can make to try to create a little bit more pressure and to create a little bit more of a free ball is when you get, let's say you get to this corner, it's again fake challenging. So what you would want in this position is if the ball is slow and it's just sort of hanging out in this corner, you actually almost want to act like you're trying to hit it and just completely not hit it and allow this player to hit the ball and roll it up the wall to your teammate for a free ball. Because this is going to create a little bit more space. This is now a free ball. There's a chance at a demo here, or there's a chance to maybe spin and get into some kind of position. But this is a little bit more threatening because there's a lot more space, and this player is now sort of out of that shadow position for a half a second. Where if this guy can maybe bring it up the wall, depending on his mechanics, and start an aerial. Obviously, this is 2 dimensions, but we'll say that there's a third. That ends up being a pretty threatening play against this player because now that's a 1v1 and we'll see what happens. Maybe this guy is in position to clean that up. But anyway, at the end of the day, if I use the cars as they were, a fake challenge in this corner can sometimes be useful. Again, instead of just trying to power this through, if this player turns and he wants to challenge this, that could be a benefit for us if we just simply let it go and let the ball roll up. And now this is a free ball for our teammate. So consider that as an offensive play as well. So the final thing to talk about is just a couple situational things. Everything you've seen so far, you're probably looking at it saying, offensively, this isn't really good. I don't really understand what we're supposed to do. And that's because the defense has been in position the whole time. But a lot of what happens in twos is situational, meaning what I would refer to as like a free 1v1, right? Where maybe this guy challenges and he's lost and he's, back in position. You have this free 1v1 against this player. And now you're just playing ones. Or sometimes you get a free 1v2 and you end up in situations like that. So being mindful and being aware of these situations can be a really critical aspect of the game. Because if you have this free 1v1, you want to pull out your best mechanic at this point to see if you can beat this guy. And as long as you play fast enough, this player can never really get in a position to where they can impact the play. So that's where you got to get in free play. You got to make sure you've got, certain things that you can do in these situations that are threatening. The other thing, just situationally, and I see this a lot, where let's say, we are blue and orange, just booms the ball sort of into our corner here. You don't have to, if this guy's here, and, we'll say we're over here somewhere, whatever, it doesn't matter. You don't have to just boom this right back, right? You can just simply let this ball roll to you, and you can pick it up whenever you want, right? Because again, if we talked about this player being back in this position here, this player coming up to challenge, if they're super aggressive and they play a 50 and, they end up flipping into this wall, you've now just created what we just talked about again, which is that free 1v1 or that free 1v2 play where we can now create some pressure. And again, as this player, you don't want to be more aggressive than normal, but you certainly want to be mindful of the fact that this may now be a passing play, because if this player again just becomes super aggressive, you can just drop this ball to the middle and there's a scoring opportunity. But the other thing to be mindful of then is if this player overcommits, if you are the one man, which is this player here, and you're the one on the ball, you can be much more aggressive in challenging the ball because this is their two man. And if you're able to get the ball past this player, you're going to create a good play. So just be mindful that doesn't mean be psychotic, but you can be more aggressive on this challenge where maybe instead of like shadowing and sort of riding the ball back, you can be a little bit more aggressive here to challenge them quickly. Or maybe if you hadn't been challenging all game, now's the time. Make your quick turn and see if you can catch them off guard. Because if you can get this ball behind this player, you're going to have a really good offensive chance. And the final situational piece that I want to leave you with here is if you are, and let's say we're on blue. So we're the blue team here, and you're this player. So you're this player who's sort of back in this 2 position. You really want to be very selective with when you are going to be diving in to challenge this play. So let's just say you have a teammate who's going to kind of, slap this ball off the wall and create a passing play like it's threes. Where in threes, by all means, dive in here and make this play. This is a great scoring opportunity. In twos, again, you have to jointly agree with your teammate what is a play and what is not a play. And sometimes this is just not a play. It might look like it's a play, but consider that if you drive forward, your teammate just hit it, so they're scrambling to maybe get back at this point. You're driving forward and you hit it, and this player blocks it. Now you've got a 50 in the middle of the field, and it spits here. What are you going to do now, right? So this ball has just gotten behind you, and there's probably a good chance this guy's going to make that save. Now, it depends what rank you're at. Maybe if low plat, the player's not going to make the save. But what's a lot safer and what you'll actually find, which is kind of interesting, is if this player, slaps it and the ball kind of drops into the middle here, everyone expects you to go. So this player might just flail and just completely miss and just end up into outer space, and you just get a free goal. Now that it's free, you just drive up and you hit it into the net and it's a goal. Right? But by being a little bit more passive as this last person back, you're taking care of what is probably the most important thing, which is this, and that's your own net. You really want to be mindful of situations to not leave your own net hanging. So that's it, everybody. Please show your support by liking and subscribing to the channel. I appreciate every one of you. Until next time, we'll catch you then. See ya.